Good morning, children. The chapter which we are going to take up today, it is named as The Wolves of Cernogratz. Now, this chapter is written by Hector Hugh Munro, who's famous with his pen name Saki. Now, let me introduce you to the story. Now, this story is based around a castle named as the Cernogratz Castle. And of course, the Cernogratz family used to live in that castle, and they were once upon a time a very rich family. But it so happens as the time passes, they become poor and they have to sell this castle and they have to leave and go away and work here and there. Now, as time passes and as a coincidence, what happens is one of the women of this Cernogratz family, she is working with a family, and that family happens to buy this castle, Cernogratz castle. So, as coincidence would have it, that lady who was once owner of this Cernogratz family, she comes back to this castle, and now she comes back as a maid because she's working with somebody as a maid and a governess, and she comes back to this castle as a governess, and starts living with the family in this castle again. And there is a legend associated with that castle. Now, what that legend is, that legend, children, you understand, legend means some story which goes on from generations to generations. So, this legend which is attached to this castle is that whenever any member of the Cernogratz family dies, no, then the dogs in that whole village, they start they start barking, sorry, and from the nearby jungle, the forest, these wolves, they start coming near this castle and they start howling, and they howl whole night long. And and one of the tree falls down. As the member dies, one of the tree falls down in the park. So this is the legend which is associated with that castle. So rest we'll find out when we read the story. I hope you people have your book ready with you on page 77, The Wolves of Cernogratz, and children, keep a pencil ready with you to write down some meanings. Now we'll start with the first paragraph. Are there any old legends attached to the castle? Asked Conrad of his sister. So Conrad asks his sister that is there any legend associated with this castle? Conrad was a prosperous merchant. Prosperous means a rich. But he was one of the poetically dispositioned member of a highly practical family. So, Conrad was, although a very prosperous merchant, but he was poetically dispositioned. That means his nature did not go with his business, prosperity, and all that. Usually, businessmen are supposed, especially the ones who are very rich, they're supposed to be very shrewd and clever kind. But he's the one who's poetically dispositioned. Now, poetically dispositioned means he's a person with a character or nature which is associated with poets, very imaginative and very sensitive type of nature. And the whole family, that family is very practical. So he is one of the members who is very different. The Baroness Grubel shrugged her shoulders. So the Baroness. Now, what is a Baroness? The wife of a baron, or a woman holding the title of a baron, a title given to a certain rank of noblemen. Noblemen in earlier times, they were given these ranks, baron and baroness. So she shrugs her shoulders. She says, I don't know. And there are always legends hanging out about these old places. In this case, there is a story that when anyone dies in the castle, all the dogs in the village and the wild beasts in the forest howl the night long. It would not be pleasant to listen to, would it? So the Baroness tells this story to Conrad that anyone who dies in this castle, the dogs they start barking in the village, and the wolves they start howling. And she says it would not be pleasant to listen to. Pleasant means it will not be very happy to listen to. No, it will be very like noisy and something which is not likable. It would be weird and romantic, said the merchant. So, the merchant who has been described as poetically dispositioned, he says it would be very romantic and very weird, very strange. Weird means strange. Anyhow, it isn't true, said the Baroness. Since we bought the castle, the place, we have had proof that nothing of the sort happens. So, Baroness says that this story, I don't think this story is true because since the time we have bought this castle, nothing of that sort has happened. When the old mother in law died last springtime, we all listened, but there was no howling. So she says, when my mother in law died in the castle, we all listened, but nothing of that sort happened. No howling was there. So she says that it is just a story that lends dignity to the place, that gives respect to the place, because usually castles they are associated with something or the other without costing anything. So she says this is just a story which lends some kind of respect to that place without costing anything. The story is not as you have told it, said Emily, the grey old governess. So, this is that governess I was talking about. Actually, she is the one who belongs to the Cernogratz family. She's the heir of the Cernogratz family, and she is working as a governess right now with the family. So she says, now she is the one who speaks. She says, the story which you have told is not like this. So everyone turned and looked at her in astonishment. So everyone who was sitting there, they start looking at Emily with in astonishment. They are a little surprised and shocked. Astonishment means she was used to sitting silent and prim and faded in her place at the table. So why everyone was shocked? Because usually she never behaved. She never talked like this. She used to just sit quietly without speaking anything, and prim means perfect behavior, which is lacking any kind of rudeness. So and faded in her place at the table, and she never got noticed because she never spoke anything, never speaking unless someone spoke to her, and there were few who did, so no one spoke to her, and she never answered without reason. So today, however, she continued to talk rapidly and nervously, but today was something different. She started talking and she continued to talk rapidly, fast, and nervously, looking straight in front of her. And she wasn't looking at anyone who was present there. She was looking straight into the air and seemed to address no one in particular. And she was talking as if she was not talking to anyone particular. It is not when anyone dies in the castle. So she may tells now that this your story is not that anyone who dies in the castle, that the howling is heard. It was when one of the Cernogratz family died here that the wolves came from far and near and howled at the edge of the forest just before the death hour. So she tells this real story. She says it's not that when anyone dies, but anyone from the Cernogratz family, when they die, it is only then that these wolves they come from far and near and they start howling at the edge of the forest just before that death hour. And the dogs of the castle and the village and all farms round would bay and howl in fear and anger at the wolves' chorus. And she says, in response to that chorus of the wolves, the dogs they start barking because they are angry at the wolves. And as the soul of the dying one left its body, a tree would crash down in the park. And she says, as the person died, as the soul left that body, the tree would crash down in the park. So it is only when Cernogratz family member dies. But for a stranger dying here, of course, no wolf would howl and no tree would fall. Oh no. So she says, but it is not for the strangers. Any stranger dies in the castle, then nothing of this sort would happen. Now there was a note of defiance and almost of contempt in her voice. Now, when she was speaking all this, there was a note of disobedience and challenge and contempt. Contempt means she was lacking respect, and she was never like that before. She, as described in the previous paragraph, she used to be very, very prim, very proper in behavior and never spoke. But today, when she was speaking, there was a sort of disobedience and contempt, disrespect in her voice, as if she, some owner of the family was speaking. The Baroness stared angrily at the old women. So, the Baroness, she was not happy with this kind of behavior, and she stared angrily. You seem to know quite a lot about the von Cernogratz legends, Fräulein Schmidt. So, she has been described, this Fräulein word is used for unmarried German women. And it is to be spoken as Fräulein. And so the Baroness addresses to her, she says, "Don't you think you know too much about this von Cernogratz family and the legends?" And her name is Smith. She said sharply, "I did not know that family histories were among the subjects you are expert in." And she taunts that I never knew that family histories, they are your favorite subjects in which you are expert and you have so much of knowledge. That is why you're speaking like this. The answer to her taunt was even more unexpected and astonishing. And the answer to this taunt, which was given by Baroness, it was more, unexpected and very shocking. So she says, "I am a von Cernogratz myself." So she declares her identity. Till now, she was hiding her identity. Maybe because the people had gone poor, and she did not want to bring, bad name to the Cernogratz family. So she went out away from here, and she hid her identity, and she was working with some other name. So this is the first time she reveals her identity. She says, "I am one of the von Cernogratz myself." Said the old woman, "That is why I know the family history." And she gives the explanation. "It's this reason that I know the family history." "You are a von Cernogratz?" came in an incredulous chorus. So all of those people who were present there right that time at the table, they all spoke in chorus. They all spoke together. And it was incredulous. Incredulous means disbelieving. So they all says that, "Are you a von Cernogratz?" They could not believe this. "When we became poor," she explains. So she starts telling the rest of the story. "And I had to go out and give teaching lessons, I took another name." So she says, "When we became poor and I had to leave this and go away from here, so I took another name. But my grandfather spent much of his time as a boy in this castle, and my father used to tell me many stories about it." So she says, "My grandfather, he spent a lot of time there in this castle. And my father used to tell me a lot of stories about this. And of course, I knew all the family legends." So she says, "And of course, because I belong to this family, so I know all the legends. When one has nothing left to but memories, one guards and dusts them with special care." So she says, she comments on her becoming poor. She says, "We were not left with anything." So she says, when one is left with anything, nothing, so one has only memories which are left with. So one takes care of them. One guards and dusts them with special care. So keeps them very specially. "I little thought when I took service with you that I should one day come with you to the old home of my family." So she says, "I had never imagined that this will happen when I had started the job with you, that I will come back to my old family home." There was silence when she finished speaking, and then the Baroness turned the conversation to other topics. So, for some time, there was silence, and then the Baroness she changed the topic because maybe she was not happy with what she came to know. But afterwards, when the old governess had slipped away quietly to her duties, there arose a clamor of disbelief. So, once the governess had gone away to her work, so then there was a clamor of disbelief. Clamor means loud, confused noise. Everybody started discussing the same thing again. It was an impertinence, snapped the Baron. So the Baron says that it was really, really impertinence, very rude and very disrespectful, the way she spoke. I don't believe a word of it. She is just Smith and nothing more. So she says that I don't believe what she was saying, and she is just a Smith and nothing more. She has been talking to some of the peasants around about the old Cernogratz family and dug up their history and their stories. So he gives the explanation that how she knows is that maybe she goes out and she talks to the peasants in the village, and from them only she had come to know about the old Cernogratz family, and she dug up their history and found out more about their history and their stories, and that is why she's speaking like this. I suppose her grandfather was a pantry boy. So he says, I don't believe that her grandfather was Cernogratz, but he was a pantry boy. Pantry boy is a boy working in the pantry, a small room which is beside the kitchen where the foods and the utensils are stored, or something of that sort in the castle. He sniggered. So he says, I believe that her grandfather was also working in this family as a pantry boy. He sniggered. Sniggered means, laughed quietly in a very mocking and taunting way. That part of the story may be true. So he says that part of the story, that grandfather also lived in this castle, that part of the story may be true, but he did not live here as the owner but as a pantry boy. The merchant said nothing. He had seen tears in the old woman's eyes when she spoke of guarding her memories. So the merchant, he did not speak because right in the beginning of the chapter, he has been described as poetically dispositioned. So he's got a very sensitive nature. So he does not believe what these people are saying. Why? Because he has seen tears in that old woman, the baroness, the governess's eye. I shall give her notice to go as soon as the New Year festivities are over, said the Baroness. So the Baroness is so angry, she says, I'll tell her to go away from my place as soon as the New Year festivities are over. Till then, I shall be too busy to manage without her. So she is very, practical and very selfish kind. She says, I can't throw her out right now because I have so much in the new year and so many parties and all that, so I will not be able to manage without her. But she had to manage without her all the same. But things happen like this, that she has to manage without her. Now let us see what happens. For in the cold biting weather after Christmas, the old governess fell ill and kept to her room. So after Christmas, this old governess, she falls in and she kept it to her room only. She was confined to her room. She could not work. It was most annoying, said the Baroness, and the Baroness found this very, very annoying because she found all these things too difficult to manage her without her. As a guest sat around the fire one morning. So the New Year party was going on and the guests were there, and she was very tensed without any help. All the time that she had been with us, I cannot remember that she was ever seriously ill, too ill to go about and do her work, I mean. So she says, till the time she started working with her, she has never imagined, she could never remember any time when she has ever fallen seriously ill that she cannot even do her work. And now when I have the house full, she goes and breaks down. So she's remarking that now when I need her the most, she has gone ill and she's breaking down. One is sorry for her, of course. She looks so withered and shrunken. So she says in front of a guest that although I'm feeling sorry for her, that she's looking very very withered and thin and weak, but it is extremely annoying all the time, all the same. Most annoying, agreed the banker's wife sympathetically. So the guest who had come, she also remarks sympathetically, she sympathizes with the baroness that it is very annoying to manage without the servants. It is cold, I expect. It has been unusually cold this year. And of course, she is quite old, said the Baroness. And the Baroness remarks that I know it is very cold also, moreover, she is also very old. Why, Vappy, what is the matter with you? So she remarks to somebody, she's talking to somebody, and she says, what is the matter with you? The small woolly lap dog had leaped suddenly down from its cushion and crept shivering under the sofa. So Vappy is the name of the dog, most probably. So the dog, crept down from the sofa cushion, and it went under the sofa, and it crept shivering. The dog was moving very nervously and slowly and was shivering with maybe cold or something. At the same moment, an outburst of angry barking came from the dogs in the castle yard. Same moment what happened from the castle yard also, barking of so many other dogs could be heard. And other dogs could be heard yapping and barking in the distance. And so many other dogs could be heard barking in the distance also, in the village. What is disturbing the animals? Asked the Baron. So the Baron remarks, why all these animals have started barking all of a sudden? And then the humans, listening intently, heard a long drawn winning howl, rising and falling, seeming at one moment miles away, at others to come from the foot of the castle walls. And the next thing which they heard was all of them, they could hear the winning sound of the maybe those wailing and howling sound which was rising and falling, which was moving high and moving low. At one moment it seemed it was coming from very far away, and at the other moment it seemed that as if it was coming from the castle walls itself, very near. All the starved cold misery of the frozen world blended with the other forlorn and haunting melodies to which one could give no name seemed concentrated in that wailing cry. Things were turning very bad, and it appeared as if all these animals, they were starved, they were hungry, and they were feeling very cold and miserable in this frozen world. And blended with other forlorn and haunting melodies, as if the things, their sound, they were mixing with the haunting melodies, those melodies which were coming from those howls. They appeared to be very haunting, very very scary, very uh, haunting melodies to which one could give no name. And those people, they were listening to these, and they could not give anything, any name to such an environment which was coming up, seemed concentrated in that wailing cry, the cry of the wolves. Wolves, cried the Baron. So the Baron remarks that it is the wolves' cry. Hundreds of wolves, said the merchant, who was a man of strong imagination. And he could imagine that there were hundreds of wolves who were wailing, who were howling. Moved by some impulse which she could not have explained, the Baroness left her guests and made her way to the narrow, cheerless room where the old governess lay, watching the hours of dying year slip by. Something happens to this Baroness now. Maybe she's reminded of that story which once the governess had told her. So all of a sudden, moved by the impulse, means all of a sudden something happens to her and she's reminded of something, and without any explanation, without asking excuse from the guest, she suddenly leaves her guest and she starts moving to that room where the governess was lying. The cheerless room, that room has been described as cheerless. There was no happiness in that room. Watching the hours of dying near year slip by, where that governess was lying ill, and she was just watching the hours of the year, dying year. The year was ending. Slip by. Slip by means move. In spite of the biting cold of the winter night, the window stood open. Although it was very cold, but the window of that room was open. With an exclamation on her lips, the Baroness rushed towards to close it. So, Baroness, she went to forward to close that window just to save the governess from the cold. But you will die of cold. Sorry, leave it open, said the old woman in a voice that, for all its weakness, carried an air of command. So the governess, she exclaims loudly. She says, "Leave it open." And this time, although she was very weak, but there was a sort of command in her voice, such as the Baroness had never heard before from her lips. And that command the Baroness had never felt from the lips of that governess. "But you will die of cold." And she says, "You'll die. It's so cold." "I am dying in any case." So the governess, she remarks, "In any case, I am dying," said the voice. "And I want to hear their music." And she says, "I want to hear the music of those, the wolves who have come to give respect to the Cernogratz family, the dying member of the Cernogratz family. They have come from far and wide to sing the death music." So she remarks that they have come from far and wide to sing the death music of my family. So, as according to that legend which she had told earlier, "It is beautiful that they have come, and I am the last worn Cernogratz that will die in our old castle." So she says, and they have come to give respect to my death, because I am the one of the last members of the family who is going to die in this castle, and they have come to sing to me. So she says they are actually singing. She finds their music singing. The cry of the wolves rose on still winter air and floated round the castle walls. And this cry was floating round the castle walls in this winter. The old woman lay back on her couch with a look of long delayed happiness on her face. And that old woman, the governess, she had got a sort of happiness in her face. Now, what could be that happiness for? That happiness was because she was a Cernogratz, and now it was proved that she was a Cernogratz because the wolves had come to sing at her death hour. And the second reason for happiness could be that she was a Cernogratz and she was dying in her family home. "Go away," she said to the Baroness. "I am not lonely anymore. I am one of the old great family." So she tells the Baroness to go away. She says, "I am not alone. I am one of the old great family members, and all my family members right now, they are here. The wolves and the dogs, they have come to give me company, to celebrate my death." "I think she is dying," said the Baroness when she had rejoined her guest. So the Baroness moves away from there and she goes back to her guest, and she says, "I think she is dying. I suppose we must send for a doctor." And that terrible howling. So she feels that she should call for a doctor. And that terrible howling, "Not for much money would I have such death music." So she remarks that even after paying much money, I would not uh, hear to this death music. I would not call for this death music. This is so haunting and terrible. That music is not to be bought for any amount of money, said Conrad. So Conrad, who has been, very different member, he remarks, because he understands the importance of this music. So he says, "This music cannot be bought for any amount of money. This just comes with the respect, the honor which of belonging to a particular family, that is the Cernogratz family. Hark, what is that other sound? Asked the Baron, as a noise of splitting and crashing was heard. And then they hear another splashing and splitting sound, and they all wonder what this sound is. It was a tree falling in the park. So, a tree had fallen in the park. There was a moment of constrained silence. So, there was a moment of long and tense and uneasy silence. And then the banker's wife spoke. So, one of the guests, she spoke. It is the intense cold that is splitting the trees. And she remarks that maybe because it is very, very cold, and that is why even the trees are splitting and falling down. It is also the cold that has brought the wolves out in such numbers. And she says it is only because of this biting cold that the wolves, they have come out into the village in such numbers. So she gives this explanation. The Baroness eagerly agreed that the cold was responsible for these things, and the Baroness also, she agrees that this cold was responsible for these things. It was the cold of the open window too, which caused the old Fräulein's heart failure, and she says that it was just because of that cold which was coming from the window which caused the death of Fräulein, the governess. But the notice in the newspaper looked very well. But the next day, there was a notice in the newspaper. On December 29th, at Castle Cernogratz, died Emily von Cernogratz, for many years the valued friend of Baron and Baroness Grubel. So, the very next day, there was a notice in the newspaper, and this notice was it was got printed by the Baroness only, Baron and the Baroness only, Grubel, and they put this notice in the newspaper as a form of respect for that governess which had been working with them as a governess, but they in that notice declared her identity, and they says that the last members of the Cernogratz, Emily von Cernogratz, she died in the castle, and she was a very valuable friend of theirs. So at last, Emily, she gets that honor and dignity which she deserved for long, and she gets that that she was able to die in her own family home. So, children, I hope you understood the story. I want you to read this chapter once again, and then next we'll discuss the question answers. Thank you, and bye for now.